Hi there, welcome to the channel. This is Beyond Disclosure. I'm Corey, and this channel is here to help record the historic transition into a world where we have some type of official disclosure on the UFO phenomenon. It's also here so that we can build a community of people that want to ask the right questions and get the right answers. So if you're interested in being a part of that type of community and helping to build it, then please join this channel. Come along for the ride of disclosure together with us here. In this video, I wanted to dissect some comments made on the Need to Know podcast by journalist Ross Coulthart and Bryce Zabel. As you might be aware, Ross Coulthart is one of the guys who seems to be right amongst it and actually knows what might be happening with some of these whistleblowers. Obviously, he broke the big story with David Grush and his whistleblower complaint, and he brought us that interview through News Nation. Ross allegedly is speaking to other whistleblowers, and I think even first-hand accounts, whistleblowers that are actually working on the legacy program, working with these retrieved craft and the reverse engineering. Both Ross and Bryce hold a lot of weight with their comments, and these comments that they made in particular, I think it was on their podcast on the 17th of July. They began the podcast by talking about Chuck Schumer and the new legislation and the language that was being put into that legislation that goes on to mention non-human intelligence, I think 20 odd times. Bryce sort of goes off and makes some pretty alarming kinds of assumptions in regards to the way this is all happening. And I thought it was really worth noting, and I haven't seen anyone else really comment on this yet. So I'm sure people are talking about it, but I haven't seen anyone else comment on it. So I thought it was a good topic to bring up because I've been thinking about it a lot. So what we'll do, we'll play the section of the podcast that I'm talking about, and we'll just listen to what Bryce and Ross say about the language going into this legislation, and more so the perceived urgency behind the whole push for disclosure at the moment. And then we'll watch this, and then we'll come back and we'll dissect it a little bit.
There seems to be a rush to now try to talk about it. So after years and years and years, decades and decades and decades, where this has all been kind of pushed aside and nobody dared speak the word alien or extraterrestrial, let alone non-human intelligence, now they're all starting to do it. And they're doing it fast. And they're talking about hearings that we'll be talking about in a moment that are coming up fast. And they're going to have some shocking things in them. And the only thing I can think of is there's got to be a reason why the powers that be in Washington, D.C. are starting to say, we need to actually say the words out loud, and we need to get language in right now to get this taken care of. And I'm concerned, Ross, that at the end of the day, the only thing that would make a politician do that and act in that sort of enhanced way where they're in a hurry is that there's some bad news involved in this. And I don't know exactly what it is. And I know that you don't know exactly what it is. People are talking. It's hard to sort out what the sources mean or don't mean. But, as I said, Chuck Schumer was and has been a cautious man in many cases. And I don't think he'd be talking like this and pushing this if he didn't think there was a fire behind his back pushing him to do so.
Look, I've got a pretty clear idea of what the government knows, and I can understand why they're moving to expedite. Yes, there is a constraint of time. The government knows that it really does have to tell the truth to the public after years of treating the subject with derision and ridicule.
So there you go. as you can see, there is some pretty interesting stuff to pick at in those comments. There's some big implications to what they are saying in those comments made. First of all, Bryce is saying how he perceives that there is a rush to get this language out, to start using it more and more and more, and how fast they are pushing this through. And then he goes on to say there must be a reason for this. There must be a reason that the powers that be are pushing this through so fast that it's being rushed through. And then he goes on to say, and I'll paraphrase here a little bit, is I'm concerned that the only thing that would make a politician do that and to act in that enhanced way, to be in a hurry, is that there's some bad news involved. And he sort of hangs his head when he says that. So we've got to understand too, guys, that Bryce and Ross, they're pretty close on this subject. They're working closely on these topics and following it together. And they have an idea better than probably most of us what might be happening. So for Bryce to say those things and sort of hang his head the way he did, I feel like they're both on the same page with this. And that's what Bryce says next. He goes on to say, we don't know exactly what the sources mean. It's hard to decipher what they are meaning in what they say. I mean, that's all that Bryce gives us. So it's hard to know, but obviously they're being told something. There must be some form of speculation in there. Maybe there's other key points that they can see that potentially link up with how this is all happening. So Bryce does say it's hard to know what the sources are saying, and then he moves over to Ross, and Ross takes over the conversation. I think his statements are quite definitive, the way he delivers them. So Ross says he has a clear idea of what the government knows. Ross says that he knows the reason why they are moving to expedite. And he says, yes, there is a constraint of time. So this is, to Ross, this appears a fact of the matter, is that there is a constraint of time and that the government knows it has to tell the truth to the public. So what do they know? What do they know that is leading them to make these type of statements? And I guess it'll be hard to find out, but maybe one day we'll get the opportunity to talk to Ross here, and maybe he'll go a bit deeper, but maybe he won't. Anyway, we love your work, Ross, so keep doing the amazing stuff you're doing. So that it leaves us to now speculate on what this time constraint might be, the reasons for this time constraint. What is that reason to rush? The way Bryce and Ross deliver these statements makes me think that something is going to happen which is going to make the subject undeniable at some point soon, and that's why we're rushing. So what is it? What could it be? There's a couple of speculative reasons that pop to my mind straight away as to what this might be. And I think number one could be maybe an adversary has cracked the technology open through their own reverse engineering programs and taken a big leap, maybe ahead of where the rest of us are, or where the US are. Maybe Russia, China, North Korea, I don't know. But maybe they have cracked this technology open and they're working on something that is going to be hard to fight back against. Please let me know in the comments what you think. I'm really interested to know everyone's ideas on this, so please leave a comment. I don't know, maybe there's some type of celestial event that is going to be hard to deny, that maybe we just don't understand. Maybe there's something entering the solar system that's going to be visible. It's I mean, it's hard to speculate on, but with the facts that are coming out now, it's also hard to put boundaries on. You know, we don't yet understand what we're dealing with, so the possibilities could be almost endless. And you know, I've heard Dr. Stephen Greer say quite a few times now that people will find that the reality of this is far stranger than the myth or the stories that we have about this. So as this does unfold, whatever story we get, the truth of it might be so strange that it really is hard to comprehend. So, and I think that's why some people in the know at the moment are sort of holding back with what they say, because I imagine maybe there's some things there that are just really hard to digest, and that, you know, sometimes you can say too much and go over a point where your mind then needs to take another giant leap in accepting the truth. But I fully accept that the truth might be stranger than what we think. So I think we all have to be prepared for that. So is there some type of event that's happening that's going to make this undeniable? Maybe. Could be. Another thing that pops to mind is something that got brought up quite briefly within the Ross Coulthart David Grush interview with News Nation. They didn't touch on it for too long, but Ross did make a point of emphasizing this point when he made the question, unlike any of the other questions that he did during the interview, I think. And that was to do with any agreements that might be in place with non-human intelligence and humans. So let's have a look at this clip now, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Perhaps some fragile yet combustible détente has been reached. Grush has written an internal document about his discoveries that refers to agreements that risk putting our future in jeopardy. And it's quite clear that you're talking about agreements between America and non-human intelligences. Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements between non-human intelligences and the American government?
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
So there you go. There is the clip from the interview, the David Grush interview from News Nation, that is in regards to possible agreements between NHI and humans. After rewatching the David Grush interview, I found this very interesting. It sort of popped out at me, the way it was asked to David Grush, the way that this question seems to be deliberately included into the final cut of the interview. There was definitely an emphasis added to this question where Ross says, "Now I need to pin you down on this one." He either can't confirm it 100% or he's not sure if he's allowed to comment on it. So they've deliberately kept this question in the final cut of the interview with a deliberately vague answer, and then Ross comes back and says, "Now I've got to pin you down on this," and then David Grush gives another very deliberately vague answer. It seems to me like this is an important topic within this David Grush whistleblower complaint and his story, that there is possible agreements. So, are these agreements the reason why we might be rushing through with disclosure? Because something within the agreements is about to happen. The public will then be able to see something that unfolds that becomes undeniable in relation to the UFO phenomenon. I think it's possible. It's definitely possible. But we're here to speculate. What else can we do? What else can we do but keep an eye on it and see what happens? So I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave a comment below so we can have an open discussion. I'm really interested to know what people think, what the rush might be, or if anyone has any ideas of what these agreements might be. And are the two things related and tied? I'd really love to know, because I think there's people out there that do know and would love to comment. So if you're one of them, please comment below. Thanks for joining us and watching this video. Hope you liked it. If you did, leave a like, please. I have left a link below to the Need to Know podcast interview that I took the clip from. So please go and watch that as well. And as I end this video, I'm just going to end it with another little bit of a clip from the Need to Know podcast, that same podcast. Just a little gem that Ross threw in there that I really liked the way he delivered this message. And yeah, check it out, guys. Thanks again. Catch you all later.
I mean, so this legislation is a clear statement by some of the most powerful people in the Congress that there is now to be a controlled disclosure of the reality of UAPs. It's not speculative, it's not vampires, it's not fantasy. You've got to get with it, debunkers. This is real. Come on, be part of history.